So, and with that, what's up and welcome to a new video on my channel. My name is Strange. Welcome to my Theo guide. Today we're taking a look at Theo, my most favorite character in King's Raid. I'm playing since EU release and he's the reason why I constantly logged in back to the game. And so here we are. Theo is a warrior and he can be used as a sub damage dealer with a bit of CC, or as a main damage dealer if you invest in his unique weapon and all of his stats. So while I'm talking here, you can take a look at the stats that I'm using on my Theo. At the moment he is in the dispatch battle, that's why I can't change his gear at the moment. But this is his PvE gear, since I don't have a perfect Manticore T8 gear yet. And for PvP I'm using another one that I can show you later on. So yeah, first we take a look at his skills. Here we are. His first skill is Final Crash. With Final Crash he attacks 16 times, dealing a total of some magic damage to enemies in range. Upon each crit hit, crit damage is increased by 3% for 10 seconds. So this means per hit. And there is a 30% chance to deal some extra magic damage and inflicting stun for 0.3 seconds. Crit damage boost can be stacked up to 30 times maximum. Okay, then we have the second skill, which is the reason why he's actually performing so good. Upon casting, activates God of Lightning and throws a spear of lightning at the enemy. This God of Lightning state is like a passive state that he has that gives him a massive damage boost. Dealing magic damage, hit enemies take 50% increased magic damage for 10 seconds. That means he can also, like as a sub damage dealer, can amplify magic damage, or he for himself can amplify himself to deal a lot more damage. While in God of Lightning state, cannot recover mana for 10 seconds, but upon activation chance for Jane is increased by 40% and attack is increased by some amount. Okay, this for Jane is his passive. We come to that later after the third skill. So third skill, Lightning Explosion. Jumps and strikes, thrusting the spear to the ground and hitting target enemy and enemies in range 5 times, dealing a total of some magic damage and inflicting stun for 3 seconds. So this skill is just a small CC reduction. Like if you go for the Black Dragon, it's actually like 1/3 to the half of the CC bar. So it's not too much, but it's also pretty useful in some other story content and all that stuff. So that aside, we come to for Jane, his passive. Each auto attack has a 20% chance of dealing bonus magic damage and inflicting stun. So each auto attack can deal bonus damage, and that is insane. Especially if you have his unique weapon, which effect is each auto attack and skill attack stacks lightning on self. Upon the 5th stack, Lightning Bolt Legios activates, and for 10 seconds attack speed is increased by 750, which is like 75%, and crit damage is increased by 250%, and penetration is increased by 750. While Lightning Bolt Legios is activated, lightning will not stack. This effect cannot be dispelled. With his soul weapon, this can be enhanced way more. I can't do that manage stuff because he's at a dispatch battle at the moment. So yeah, Now that we have talked about his skills, you should know that if you want to use him as your main DPS, you should focus getting his unique weapon to at least 3 stars as soon as possible. Otherwise, other heroes will outshine him pretty easily in the damage. And he's good in single target and multi-target stages, and can be used in almost every content of the game without any problems. So he can do everything, but he's not the damage dealer with the most damage on world boss, or damage dealer on some raids, like he's not the best dragon raid champion and stuff, but he can do everything, not as fast as others or not as high damage amount than others, but he can still do it in his way. So he's very universal. As for treasures, this depends on the content you actually want to use him. Like for PvP, for example, you can use a Solar Stone, which deals bonus percentage damage that scales with his attack, stuff like that. Or if you want to use the ring to give him more survivability, where do you have it, a ring? Here, Ring of Spirit Moth. That's actually good in PvP too. For like world boss and stuff, the Blessing of Earth is a pretty good thing you should notice, or stuff like Christmas Tree of Holy Knights or Infernal Greatsword. These are just really good. Yeah, then as for the unique treasure, you should focus the necklace. This is for the second skill, and the effect is that attack speed is increased by 250 for the duration of skill, and the activation chance for Jane is increased by an additional percentage. If you have it like on 5 stars, there's an increased additional percentage of like 20%. Now I have it at 4 stars. It's not maxed out yet, but this gives me like 16.5%. For another unique treasure that you can actually use pretty well on him is another Funeral Doll. And this doll is buffing his passive, so increasing activation chance by 24% and own attack speed by 350 for 30 seconds at the beginning of every battle. So necklace can be used in every content, like PvE and PvP. This doll instead can only like good used when you use it on content that has multiple stages, so you can get the buff again and again, or in PvP. If you like heavily PvP focused, you can actually go for the Funeral Doll to give him a nice boost at the beginning of the battle. So other than that, we take a look at the gear. I personally recommend red or black dragon gear on him. For the stats, you should actually focus on getting close to 100% crit to amplify his crit damage with the buffs that he gets from his unique weapon skills and all of that. You need to get like 100% crit. For me on this gear, I have like 33% crit chance. With my perks, I get another 15. With my healer, I get another 15. So I will hit the 100% chance. Other than that, you should focus on attack lines, because he has a lot of attack speed, crit damage, and all that stuff, like penetration, all of that he has already in his kit. So you don't have to give him the stats with the gear. what he actually needs is like crit till he hits the 100%, and other than that you can actually go on full attack if you want to. Some other stats that you can actually focus on are maybe like 1 or 2 lines attack speed and maybe 1 or 2 lines of mana recovery per attack to give him a better boost to get his boost phase where he deals that much damage. For PvP, I would actually recommend the Hero Suppression gear. With that you can actually focus on pure attack, and I would actually recommend some penetration lines to get through the front line, because that's actually not as easy, especially with a low man in the enemy team. You should actually focus on getting some penetration on him. With that, here is my PvP gear. Here I have like attack penetration rune and attack, lifesteal, attack. I have to reforge the enchantment option, but other than that, MP recovery per attack, penetration, MP recovery per attack, and the crit rune. Here I have attack, and crit damage, and here attack and penetration. Yeah, that's the gear that I'm using on him in PvP content. If you're able to get Manticore T8 gear with a lot of the tag lines, that's actually the thing that you want to get for PvE content. I'm thinking about some stuff. Let's see the Transcendence perks. So yeah, these are the perks that I'm using for my PvE content. I go for attack, I go for the monster hunting to give him another attack boost and some reduced damage from monsters. The opportunity strike to give him more crit chance and a bit crit damage. I go for God of Lightning Dark. So damage taken while in Lightning God state is increased by 30%, but that's actually not that dangerous if you have some lifesteal on him and some good healers in the back. That's actually not a problem. So, but attack is increased. Attack rate is increased by 100%. And that's a lot. So, here for Chain Light, damage is increased by 40%. That's another perfect buff for him. Theolite to give him a bit more crit chance, attack, death, HP, and Theodark so that when God of Lightning is activated, recovers half mana instead of having no mana recovering. He get half mana instead recovered, and when mana is full, attack is increased by another 50% for 10 seconds. And this effect only activates once every 20 seconds. So this is another way to give him more burst in his boost phase. So yeah, for PvP, I have 2 builds. This is the first one where I give him more attack and HP. I go for Blood Wrath to give him some lifesteal and attack speed. And God of Lightning for Jane and Theolite. And if you want, you can actually go for Theodark to give him more of a boost phase. If you can't reach, like if you don't use mana recovery on your gear, don't go for Theodark. Otherwise you won't hit that full mana to gain those damage buff. If you don't use Theodark, you can actually go for stuff like, where is it? Final Crash Dark to reduce a cooldown, or more stun duration if you use him like a sub damage dealer in PvP. If you actually want to use him as a sub damage dealer, more like in a passive way to be more in the front line, so your range damage dealer or stuff like that can deal more damage, you can go for this build. This gives him some attack and crit resistance, some attack, which is increased per enemy. Same goes for crit resistance, CC resistance. Both of these can be stacked depending on how many enemies there are, but with a constant of 4 enemies when the battle starts, that's actually a nice boost. Then we go for Tactical Foresight to increase his dodge rate and that he takes 10% reduced damage, and Blood Wrath with Lifesteal and attack speed. So then we reduce the mana cost of God of Lightning with the Light perk to give him his boost phase more soon. And with Theolite he actually has more survivability with the death, HP and attack increase, and some crit chance is always nice. So yeah, this is Theo. I like him a lot. I will always recommend building him because he's so universal and I just like him. He's just cool. So lastly, I would like to give some team comp tips that would go good for him. For tanks, on PvE usage, I would actually recommend Jane. She's incredibly good at tanking and stuff and amplifies some damage for him. Otherwise, I recommend Naraxis. I actually don't have him yet because he's the last champion that I'm missing to complete my whole collection of Kingsraid characters. And he's in my inn, so I have to wait for a few days to get him. Other than that, for PvP, I will actually recommend Dazarda, Sonya, or Loman to give him more boost and survivability in PvP content. For healers on PvE content, I will recommend Elias, Refi, Lavril, and on some way Annette is something like a healer that is also a mechanic. So that's her. I would actually say that she's more like a support than a damage dealer, but you can actually go on damage on her. So for the content that I'm using, she's more like a support. On PvP, I will actually recommend something like Cassandra, Leo, Alduin, stuff like that. For a sub DPS, if you don't want him to be used as a sub DPS, you actually have to have another DPS. So if you want to use him as your main DPS, you should actually focus on someone who has some CC. Like, for example, Maria, Lorraine, Demail, or like me, I use Luna. I actually liked her a lot. She's also able to do a lot of damage, so I went for Luna when I was playing the story mode and stuff. But you actually have to focus on some other characters that are able to amplify Theo, like characters with CC, amplifiers, all that stuff. For PvP, you should decide if you use Theo more like a main damage dealer or a sub damage dealer. Gosh, if you want to use him as a main or a sub damage dealer, and if you want to use him as a main damage dealer, you need a lot of CC. If you want to use him as a sub damage dealer, you should actually focus on some ranged burst champions that can burst a team away, and Theo gives your team more survivability through the front line. So yeah, that's my Theo. I hope you liked the video. At the end, I will show you some content where I actually used him. So I hope you liked it. If you liked it, give a thumbs up and leave a comment in the section below. And I hope we see each other in the next episode. So, goodbye.